If you carry a firearm and discharge your weapon in self-defense, you could face hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees and expenses. So carry the protection of CCW Safe, Self-Defense Legal Services membership. Upfront payment of all criminal and civil defense costs with no out-of-pocket for members. Unlimited defense budgets, unmatched legal expertise. Carry the same level of support police officers have. Carry CCW Safe, the highest caliber.
And we're back. Got my friend Jeff Capps joining us again tonight from the great state of Texas, and our in-house Intel subject matter expert S2. Who's got the coldest temps between y'all? What are you sitting at, Jeff?
We're sitting at about 30 or 31 right now, but I promise you those streets are blocks of ice right now.
Right. S2, what'd you say it was in North Carolina?
Yeah, right now it's about 32.
Oh, man, it's a tie. I know you guys got me beat, but it was 31 to 40 with a wind chill of 31 degrees is what it says here. So
it's definitely putting a damper on me going out and flying my drones.
No kidding. No, he's putting a damper on our dogs going outside to do anything. We've got these Florida pit bulls that they have to have their nice warm jackets on and got to be nice and cozy. But anyway, I digress. So we certainly don't have it anywhere near as bad as our friends on the left coast have it right now. So we're going to jump in right away. We covered some of the fire stuff last night, y'all. And tonight we've got some different angles that we're going to come at it from. And we'll start here with some updates on a website that shall not be named, because every time we bring this up on YouTube, they give us a kick in the ass for it. Regardless, here we are.
So, better hide that B on the right.
Yeah, exactly. You know, it's so crazy, S2, that when we used to take links and put them in the video descriptions, if we put anything in related to this website or AJ's website, it would gray out the save button. Like you couldn't even save it in the description. So I know for a fact that when we show their name on screen, that the AI is picking it up and penalizing us. But anyway, things continue to get worse in Los Angeles. The gist of it today is that there is 0% containment. So in other words, it is still running rampant and wild. The videos are just incredible if y'all haven't watched them or not. But there's some interesting stuff came to light this afternoon. So this is 3:30 p.m. Eastern time. So about 3.5 hours ago. Happening now, the Eaton fire is approaching communication towers which service local media outlets throughout Southern California. Towers located at the top of Mount Wilson are also used by law enforcement. They're also used by paramedics and fire departments as well. So if this particular fire takes over that hill, there's a potential for first responders to lose comms, at least lose their normal means of communications. And scrolling on down from there, Mel Gibson was on Joe Rogan discussing this. So just to give you some perspective, they spent $24 billion last year on the homeless, and they took money away from fire departments. They took money away from forest management. They took money away from all the stuff that's currently come into play. So if you go to patreon.com/survival dispatch, you can go download this situation report for free. It has links to all of this stuff. We don't play all the videos in full length because we'd be here for 5 hours like Sean Ryan, and we're not in his league. And we provide the sit rep, so you can specifically go to all of the links that we've brought up and play the videos. Here's some insane destruction in Pacific.
Well, you're seeing this moments after I saw it. The clouds just cleared, and I can tell you this is the most devastating event that I've seen. I've seen the earthquakes, all the fires here over the last 30 or 40 years, and we've never seen anything like this. This is Pacific Palisades, and the fire went through here, and it just took out thousands of homes all the way down to the shoreline. I mean, to describe it, really, it looks like a war zone. Now, the winds have died down a little bit right now, so they can make some progress, and as I mentioned, the smoke just cleared. This is the first time we were able to get in here, and see the destruction. That's the village in Pacific Palisades. But as you can see, row after row after row, every single home burned right down to the foundation. Fortunately, this fire, we're not hearing about any fatalities. The other fire out in Altadena and Pasadena, we've had at least 5 people killed in that one.
So speaking of the number 5, there are 5 separate large wildfires raging at this point in time. And again, the reports today is that there is zero containment of any of them. So suffice it to say, this is a massive emergency situation in Los Angeles. Look at the pictures of people looking at on their neighborhoods. It's just absolutely incredible. So moving on to the next piece here. People are lighting fires in otherwise non-burning urban areas of LA. Saw this happen firsthand at 302 Pico in Santa Monica. Called it in, and fire department and police responded. Stay safe and call in any activity ASAP. We don't need more flames out there. So you've got Governor Newsom saying that this is a result of climate change and global warming. And you have other people showing evidence like this, that there's an element of arson involved. 37-second video.
We're at 302 Pico, and people are lighting fires now. You can see they lit a fire. These guys, not all the people there, but some of those guys lit that fire, and they're actually, the trees caught fire, and then the palms are catching fire. So civilians are now lighting fires down in the so-called, flats around Santa Monica, Venice. So be safe out there. Fire department's been dispatched. We don't have enough water to put this thing out, but we're supposedly on the way.
So that's another problem I'm sure y'all are aware of by now, is that the fire hydrants have essentially been dry for a number of reasons, including the water reservoirs not being topped back up again. Not entirely sure why they're not pumping water out of the Pacific Ocean, but I'm not in charge, so my opinion probably doesn't mean a whole lot in that regard. So I want to go back in time here 12 years ago and play a short video, 1 minute 43 seconds, on threats that have been made against the United States by our enemies, terrorist enemies, Al Qaeda and ISIS in particular, and then we'll really kick this thing off.
Fires could be a terrorism plot by members of Al Qaeda. Details of the threat being released by an online magazine authored by terrorist sympathizers. We'll call 7 investigator John Ferrugia here now. And John, this is not the first time that we're hearing about a threat like this.
That's right, Ann. FBI sources tell 7 News that it revisits, actually, a topic federal authorities have been aware of since they first heard about it in 2003 from Al Qaeda detainees. But now they say Al Qaeda is bringing to bear enhanced information and new tactics. That's because it's more specific in the online magazine where it was published. It's what you might call a step-by-step primer. Now, I spoke with ABC's Brian Ross, who first broke the story this morning on GMA.
And gives in precise detail how to set what they call an ember bomb, plant them around various forests.
Do you think the idea of setting fires is higher on the menu with the FBI than it has been?
Well, they certainly have to take it with a kind of seriousness, because some of the interrogations of the detainees, the information was sketchy and they couldn't tell how reliable it was, whether that was just aspiration or not. Here, at least, in kind of full color, is a description with, according to the bomb experts we've talked to, descriptions of bombs that would work and do exactly what they're intended to do.
You can bet federal authorities are keeping local jurisdictions up to date on this information, although they say there is no current specific threat. But an additional concern here isn't just about Al Qaeda, but anyone who goes on, looks at this and wants to set a fire.
Oh, I know. There's so much to think about and be aware of.
Yeah,
All right.
absolutely.
Thank you, John. By the way, if you have a story idea for John or any.
All right. So I'm going to jump way ahead in the sit rep for tonight, because some information was brought to us just before we went on air by S2, and it's pretty crazy. So S2, jump in and describe this PDF to start with, and then we'll start stitching everything together.
So basically what this is this is a report that was done by the USDA and the Forestry Service under the authority of DARPA. And essentially it's called Forest Fire as a Military Weapon. It goes through in detail the different methods, materials, and protocols that could be used for defoliation of an enemy's ground.
And like you said, this really isn't a big stretch from what happened right around the same time in Vietnam as well with the napalm, correct?
Yeah.
For those people who are watching who may not be familiar with napalm, as to give a description of what it is and how it works and how sticky it is.
It's basically a combustible material that's mixed in with something that can adhere to surfaces. It was used for defoliation. It was used for making fire barriers to keep enemy troops away, or to directly bomb enemy ground, to smoke them out, basically.
Yeah, and if it lands on a human being, what happens?
It doesn't stop burning. You can put it out, but it's just excruciating. The best way to think about it is to think of gasoline and styrofoam. That's a poor man's napalm. And the gasoline would ignite, obviously, but the napalm would be the carrier and would be the sticky substance that would stick to surfaces.
Yeah, absolutely horrific. So the reason I inserted this at the beginning of the conversation is because this concept of using wildfires as a military weapon isn't something new. This isn't something that the bad guys or our military, pardon me, just thought up. I'm just going to read this one page. This is a really long document. I can't remember exactly how many pages, but 171 pages actually, now that I look at it. So in 1965, the Joint Chiefs of Staff requested that the Secretary of Defense initiate research to determine the feasibility of measuring the flammability characteristics of forest and jungle growth, modifying flammability so that vegetation would readily support combustion, and developing measures to destroy large areas of forest or jungle growth by fire. This research has been conducted by the Forest Service of the Department of Agriculture under sponsorship of the Advanced Research Projects Agency through ARPA Order 818. So, plethora of information in this particular document, and where it's relative is that years ago, Al-Qaeda had a magazine called Inspire, and it was published on the internet and it was worldwide. And in that magazine, they specifically encouraged their members and members of other terrorist groups like ISIS to use wildfires against us in America to cause massive economic repercussions and damage. Jeff, did you have a chance to read up by chance on the Inspire angle?
Yes, sir, I did. To some degree, I did. I've noticed that particular strategy has been around for a long time with a lot of different armies, but they are actively seeking out ways to sowing chaos. And I did. So when you sent me the sit rep today, I did some research and kind of probably hit it from another angle than you guys did. But I was just totally blown away by some of the things that I read, and I'll get into that later on. I don't want to hog up all the time, but I've got a considerable amount of reading that I did today with regard to this very thing.
Okay, really looking forward to hear what you have to say. S2, you've been tracking Antifa, pretty much from the get-go, and it's a regular thing that's on your radar. We haven't had a chance to discuss this, but does memory serve me right? Haven't there been examples of Antifa, perhaps in Canada, I don't know, maybe elsewhere, setting large-scale fires like this, or is my memory failing me?
Yeah, here in the United States too.
Tell me a little bit about that. Just refresh my memory on that, please.
In fact, if I remember right, there was a couple of them that had gotten arrested for setting forest fires in California. I think they were just prosecuted this last year.
So suffice it to say, I mean, we don't have any particular evidence at this particular moment in time that any terrorist or activist group has set the fires in California. We're just bringing people's attention to it, which is also why I played that video of those people committing arson. it's hard to say if we'll ever find out the truth, if we ever know what the source of these fires were. But I think it's safe to say it's not the climate change boogeyman as Gavin Newsom and the rest of them want to portray it as. So bear with.
Can I make another comment on this?
Yeah, go ahead.
So there is another angle to explore with this too, in that I believe there's been statistics out there that show that illegal aliens coming through the San Diego corridor have also been responsible for a large number of these fires that have been set in the past as well. Because they come up and when they come through the border, they take refuge in these forests and they start campfires and don't put them out.
Very interesting. So suffice it to say, there could be multiple reasons that cause this. But tonight we want to talk about the connection between wildfires and our enemies and not dismiss the chance that this could have been caused by arson. It could have been caused by arson by terrorists. It could have been caused by arson by domestic groups like Antifa. And as you just mentioned, could have been sparked off by illegal invaders starting fires. So bear with me here. I put together some information in a text note, and I'm going to read through. It's probably half a dozen paragraphs, but it's important to the topic of terrorists using wildfires as a weapon against us. So the notion of terrorists planning to set massive wildfires in America has been discussed in various contexts, including intelligence warnings, historical precedents, and analysis by security experts. Here's what can be gathered from available information. And by the way, this is in tonight's SITREP, patreon.com/survival dispatch. You can download it for free. Historical precedents and warnings. There have been instances where the use of fire as a weapon has been explored by terrorist groups. For example, Japanese fire balloons during World War II targeted the Western U.S., and the idea of using wildfires as a form of economic warfare has been mentioned in the past. U.S. intelligence officials have warned about the potential for terrorists to start wildfires, with threats sometimes linked to specific groups like Al-Qaeda and ISIS. These groups have, in their propaganda, the Inspire magazine in particular, suggested arson as a tactic, specifically targeting forests or urban interfaces to cause economic damage or sow fear. Al-Qaeda and ISIS propaganda. So that's another category. Publications like Al-Qaeda's Inspire magazine have included instructions on how to start wildfires, providing detailed guides on creating ember bombs, which were referenced in one of the videos, and choosing optimal weather conditions for arson. Similarly, ISIS has promoted wildfire arson through its newsletters and online propaganda, urging supporters to set fires to agricultural lands and forests as part of their strategy. The next bucket is domestic extremism. Beyond foreign terrorist organizations, there's also a concern about domestic extremists using arson for their causes. This includes radical environmentalists who might see arson as a way to advance their agenda, though this is more about political or environmental activism than traditional terrorism. So I think Antifa, for example, would fall under that bucket. Current sentiment and intelligence is the next bucket. Posts on X have echoed these concerns, highlighting intelligence warnings from previous years about the potential for terrorists to instigate wildfires. There's an acknowledgement on the simplicity and low cost of such attacks, making them attractive to lone actors or small cells. These sentiments, however, are often based on intelligence assessments, and not necessarily indicative of ongoing confirmed plots. And last two paragraphs, preventative measures and response. The U.S. government, through agencies like the FBI and DHS, has been proactive in addressing this threat by sharing intelligence, enhancing wildfire detection capabilities with satellite technology, and increasing security in at-risk areas. There's a focus on both prevention and rapid response, recognizing the potential for such acts to cause significant damage. So, final paragraph. While there is no conclusive evidence of terrorists currently setting massive wildfires in America, as part of a coordinated campaign, the threat is taken seriously due to past terrorist interest in arson tactics and the potential for significant impact. The discourse around this issue underscores the need for vigilance, preparedness, and the integration of intelligence with wildfire management strategies. S2, I want to get your comments in 1 second. I forgot to mention that this angle of consideration with regards to wildfires came from our good friend Keith Graves at Christian Warrior Training. We were having a conversation, and he mentioned to me, because he interfaced with the Joint Terrorism Task Force multiple times during his career, and he said, you know, do you remember when the terrorists were threatening to use wildfires against us? I had a very vague recollection, but certainly didn't remember all of it. And I want to thank Keith for specifically bringing this up. There is an incredible amount of information on the internet that speaks this topic. So it's not just a conspiracy theory from tinfoil hat guys. There's actual intel behind this. So S2, I'm going to pivot to you, and I don't know if you have any additional information or not, but are there any other instances where you've heard this as being a potential method of attacking us by terrorists? And if not us, are there other places elsewhere in the world that you've heard of terrorists considering doing this?
You know, there was the wildfires in 2019 that I think they initially thought that it could be that. They had approximately 6 wildfires that had started back in January of 2019. You had the Redwood Fire in Northern California, you had the Pocket Fire, you had the Tubbs Fire and the Nuns Fire, and then you had the Atlas Fire and the Sulphur Fire. And they initially thought that, but then I believe the police came out or the fire department came out and said that they believed that it was caused by infrastructure failure, i.e. electrical systems that had sparked these fires. I just kind of find it kind of funny that all of these fires, if you go back and you look at the map of when those started, they all started in a straight line up and down the coast, and 2 that were directly above each other geographically on that map. That doesn't look random to me.
Wow, that's very, very interesting. Jeff, have you got any comments on that? I wasn't aware that they went up the coast in a straight line like that.
No, sir. I know that I will take this back to when I was working down in the valley, down in the Harlingen area. I was working with a gentleman who was a member of the John Birch Society. And of course, they advocate writing your congressman, all that good stuff they do. But for a long time, they were classified as generally right-wing nuts. Okay. And but they had a lot of good ideas. And the one thing that came to me was my boss would tell me about the meetings they had at night, and they would talk about people would come in and put on these meetings and talk about how there were people coming across the border. In this particular point in time, it was Russians. They were always talking about Russians and communists. This was probably about 85 or 86. I don't think Al-Qaeda and things like that weren't really a big thing in our minds at that point in time. But you know, we talked about that. And you can think about deforestation in a lot of different ways. Burning crops, separating supply lines, exposing troops. You can clear battlefields or barriers to get it to a particular objective. But this has been going on since the Persian Wars, the Roman Empire, scorched earth policies during the medieval times, and even the early modern period, Napoleonic Wars. They did these things. This is not a new tactic, and it shouldn't surprise anybody that somebody would come in and they're not as, they can't meet us front on. They can't do it. They can't do it face to face. We wipe them out, but they can continue to make hundreds of little things like in a straight line up the coast. That is absolutely probably not random, and then they can get away with stuff like this. And I think it's absolutely something that's taking place.
So Kanzi is super active in our chats. I really appreciate the content and the commentary that he's brought to the SDN chat. And if memory serves me right, S2, were there not dozens of fires in Canada either last year or the year before? And I see how Kanzi's noted the Trudeau government, or Turdo as we call them, was blaming it on lightning, but I have a vague recollection that they were acts of arson. And I don't remember if it was Antifa or another group. Can you fill in any of those blanks?
I think it was one of those environmental groups. I can't remember the name of it right off the top of my head.
And I mean, we're probably not going to recall the exact number, but how significant was the damage? Wasn't it? It was something extreme, right? Here we go. Kanzi's got some more details for us. 18.4 million hectares. So 45 million acres, roughly the size of North Dakota, more than double the previous record. That is a massive area to be torched. And again,
and no containment.
Yeah, and I'm maybe Kanzi can pop some comments in here for us because he seems to be an expert on this. My recollection is truly that these Canadian fires in the end were tracked down to arson, that they had nothing to do with lightning or climate change or anything else. So we'll see when Kanzi weighs in on that. I have another video that was published earlier today on how devastating the fires have been. I'm going to pull up this video. We'll play the whole thing, and then we'll resume the commentary.
The stuff that's here is replaceable. People are not, so very lucky. So having the family is the most important thing.
The devastating fires in Southern California have been relentless. Overnight, a new fire erupting in Hollywood Hills, forcing more people to evacuate. ABC's Matt Gutman reports as 5 people are dead and crews are attacking the flames from the air and the ground.
This morning, already strapped firefighters forced to jump to yet another fire in the heart of Los Angeles. The Sunset Fire, fueled by this week's historic wind event in Los Angeles, igniting in the hills just north of Hollywood Boulevard. Firefighters blasting water into this apartment, trying to protect it. A fleet of helicopters swirling over the fire, dropping water. Residents facing gridlock as they try to evacuate down the narrow streets of the Hollywood Hills. Our station, KABC, capturing the inferno quadrupling in size in just minutes.
This thing is spotting and growing by the second.
And another fire springing up in nearby Studio City.
There goes the front of the facade.
This as the Palisades fire grows to over 17,000 acres, becoming the most destructive wildfire in LA history. The fire still consuming homes this morning. At least 1,000 structures burned in the Palisades and in Malibu, the number expected to grow significantly. Everything from churches to mobile homes engulfed in flames and now gone. Roughly 30 miles to the east, the deadly 10,000-acre Eaton fire killing at least 5 people. Entire densely packed neighborhoods erupting in flames. Residents there making split decisions about whether to leave everything behind or attempt to save what they can.
I know I'm not supposed to be here, but this is my parents' home.
Lynn Guzman trying to save her 90-year-old parents' home after they lost fire insurance.
These insurance people decided to cancel their fire. And we're going through this, and it just happened, and they have no fire insurance.
And in Los Angeles, those fire hydrants running dry just when they were needed most.
That was Matt Gutman reporting, and the devastation from the Southern California wildfires is almost impossible to imagine, but there are ways to help. Uber is offering free.
So I'm going to stop that there. And Jeff, I want to get to your input on why this tends to happen in California. From my perspective, and I've worked in California, but I haven't lived there, is that they get very little rain relative to, say, here in Florida, and that it's almost like a tinderbox 365 days a year. Give me your thoughts on why California seems to have this ongoing problem with these forest fires. You're on mute, Jeff.
I think it's the governance for starters. You take a state like let's talk about New Mexico. My in-laws have a cabin up in the mountains up there, and man, they can't drive a motor vehicle down the greenway. You can't have a motorbike. You can't. There's certain times of the year you can't leave anything burning in your yard, like one of those little porch fires. Their rules are so strict up there, and not only that, you have to clean up your pine straw and all your things in your yard. And I think in California, I don't really think they preach the ecology thing, but I don't think they're really practicing what they ought to preach with regard to forestry and protecting the resources. So I think you have a perfect fire there, and for someone to just go throw a cigarette out in the fire in the woods is and do it at the right time of year, like when the Santa and winds are blowing, and you could just really cause a big commotion. I'd like to mention also, in you talk about Canada. My cousin lives in Kelowna, which is in British Columbia, probably about 3.5, 4 hours northeast of Vancouver proper, and they have fires there every year, and they're massive fires. And there have been a couple of times my cousins going, they live on the big lake up in Kelowna, and they're going like, dude, this is not looking good for us. And you're talking about a country with 41, 42 million people, and they have literally 11. The land mass is almost the same per square mile as it is in the United States, but they have 11% of the population. Say 12. Let's just say 12, rounded out. There's a situation there where you have all this land mass and you have so few people that you could see where gathering resources to be able to battle these things and appropriately then puts you basically just like Canada. And if the government's not doing anything to help you, then you've really got a problem, because that water thing should not be happening.
Yeah, some of the notes that I had on this, Jeff, were that number one, California has not been doing maintenance on their forests like the rest of us do. So whatever falls on the ground, they leave it there, and then that debris becomes, essentially tinder.
Mm-hmm.
Also, they're between retention ponds and reservoirs. Apparently, they stopped filling them because it would have drained water elsewhere in the state, and they were trying to bring back one particular species of fish. So they said, we can't take any of the water because this one type of fish needs them. And it just seems like there's this cascading one error after another that's made this a perfect storm. And it's not just this year, right? This has been going on for quite some time. But S2, do you want to chime in on that as far as creating the perfect storm? Did I miss anything as far as what else could make this so perfect for wildfires?
No, I did want to add the wildfires were actually up in Canada were set by a man named Brian Perret, who was a climate conspiracy theorist that actually put out Facebook posts blaming the Canadian government for setting the fires when he actually set 14 of them himself. At any rate, the big problem that you have is, like Jeff said, is with the land management piece of it, because some hippie out in California decided it was a bad idea to go in and do controlled burns of these areas where this brush exists. So they made it a law that you couldn't go burn the.
Oh, I think we lost.
Because it's bad for the climate. It's just bad for the climate to be burning all of this stuff. Well, that's all great and fine, but you kind of have to decide which hand you want to fill up first, because now that the forest fires have started, now they're putting off way more pollution than it would be if you had done a controlled burn. So that's one of the major areas that I have a problem with, how these things are easily started. And it could be somebody just taking a walk and smoking a cigarette, and they just flip this cigarette into a pile of ash, and boom, there you go.
Well, I think suffice it to say that when the dust settles on this, there's going to be many billions of dollars of losses. And,
here's the fact of the matter. They can put these fires out. They can put them out. They have a contract with a company that specifically specializes in this. I remember this because I studied this in depth about 2 years ago when they had the wildfires out there before. And the company has the helicopters that they can fly in there and drop dry chemical on this and put this shit out right now. Why they're not doing it? Because they're government contractors.
So, I mean, can you speculate on why they're not doing it? Why they're not putting the fire? I mean, that seems criminal to me.
Well,
do you need a tinfoil hat?
Yeah, I really do. I mean, it's like everything else that we see. We saw Lahaina, Hawaii, in sort of the same problem. The only problem with the only difference between that is we didn't have blue roofs here. But I think the reason they're doing it is, one, it's a combination of things. It's incompetence for one, and it's multifaceted, because you have the incompetence that allows this to start, allows this to continue to burn down to a point where people have lost everything, and then all of a sudden you have the Blackwaters and the Vanguards and everybody else, or not Blackwater. Refresh my memory. What's the
BlackRock?
Yeah, BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street, and all of those folks come swooping in to buy the land up for pennies on the dollar because people are desperate. So you look at an opportunist point of view, and then you look at, we're not letting a crisis go to waste. Plus, there's the fact that there are many cities that have been targeted for what they call these 15-minute cities.
Mm-hmm.
And this basically, if you look at LA, I mean, that's prime. That was actually one of the cities that was targeted for this. So if you have the major financial interests coming in to snatch up the land, the state government will cooperate with the local governments, and they'll start rebuilding it back in their image of what they want it to be, which would be a 15-minute city.
Right.
So there's my tinfoil hat.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I just want to back up for a second that there were residential homes in Maui that had blue roofs on them, and they seemed to be the only ones that didn't get torched. Correct, S2?
Yeah. And in looking at some of these homes, there was also speculation that the electrical system was supercharged, where it heated up the electrical wires inside of these homes and started those homes on fire. And in looking at some of this footage that we're seeing of this in the urban areas, it looks kind of like the same thing.
Good point. Absolutely possible. Can you imagine, a cyber attack, S2, where the Chinese have access to all of our critical infrastructure, where they sent, say, 700,000 kV instead of 200,000 kV down transmission wires? They could set everything on fire with just literally the flick of a switch. But I want to get both of your thoughts on the potential for this to be another land grab. So in Maui, they came in afterwards and said, here's peanuts, sell us your land. You'll never be able to build there again. We've got the same thing happening in West North Carolina now, where North Carolina is saying, we're going to give you $20,000 for that piece of land, go away. And people have already been speculating that may come into play here in Southern California as well. Jeff, you want to take a run at that as far as this potentially being a land grab?
First of all, I don't know if they haven't done it already. And second of all, if they haven't, I don't know why they haven't done it yet. Because the Palisades, for instance, it's not upper crust Manhattan. It's good, solid homes, and people live in there. They're regular folks for the most part, and they've made a good living, and it was a beautiful place to live. But man, some of those homes were old and been in families for a very long time. I don't know why that the BlackRocks and the Vanguards and the people like that haven't made that move already, because they were on it in Hawaii. I mean, they were on it. You were getting those reports back ASAP, and people were going, holy crap, if you're going to look at that, then maybe you ought to look at people actually setting the fires to get the predictable outcome.
Yeah, makes sense. S2, your thoughts on any of these emergencies being related to a land grab?
I think, speculating on this, I think the probability is at least 80%.
So high, based on all of your research.
Yeah. Based on the behavior that occurs after these events happen.
Okay. All right. I appreciate that. So we'll move on to the next video here. So this is a report from 12 years ago with regards to Al-Qaeda promoting forest fire attacks.
They have used car bombs, and they've flown planes into buildings to cause massive pain and destruction. Well, now Al-Qaeda is telling its followers that the American Southwest, that means New Mexico, is like one big pile of kindling, and the terrorists should burn it down. News 13's Ian Schwartz is live downtown with the details on that. Ian?
Dick, terror threat is in an Al-Qaeda newsletter online. It says forest fires are easy to start. then hard to stop.
A Las Conchas fire near Los Alamos last year was New Mexico's biggest ever. Everything in its path. It was started by a tree falling into a power line. But the state's Department of Homeland Security says that just shows how easy it would be for a terrorist with one match to cause widespread damage.
These threats are threats, and we are at war still with an enemy that is on inflicting harm on us.
Those threats are in this English version Al-Qaeda newsletter called Inspire that surfaced recently on the internet. It calls on sympathizers to start wildfires, giving them a step-by-step how-to guide, even highlighting the American Southwest as a region ready to go up in flames.
Not only did the newsletter talk about starting fires, it talked about which conditions would be best to get them started.
The newsletter suggests dry, windy conditions to get fires to spread, and it shows how to make a timed firebomb with gasoline and Christmas lights.
Fire danger across New Mexico is very high right now. We could have a catastrophic wildfire right now.
Dan Wares with the State Forestry Department and says this is just another reason for everyone to be on the lookout.
We want them to be vigilant no matter what they're seeing, and that includes any suspicious behavior. Kids playing with matches or fireworks or arson and terrorism.
The New Mexico Department of Homeland Security says it doesn't have any specific intel saying that New Mexico is specifically targeted, but they are still warning police agencies around the state to be on the lookout. Back to you.
All right. So moving on from there, we've got about a half a dozen tabs left to cover. And we just want to really bring attention to the fact that for many, many years now, our enemies, especially Al-Qaeda and ISIS, have essentially encouraged their members in America to set these massive fires. Again, we don't have any evidence that that's what's happening right now in California, although we do have some evidence of it being arson in a number of cases. And there was also a comment, I want to say it was from somebody who actually works in firefighting in California in the chat, said something to the effect of, these are all urban area fires, not really related to not maintaining forests and those sort of things. And, you know, that kind of, for me at least, that makes me wonder what else is there to this story that is unknown at this particular point in time. This article that I have on screen right now was published 1 week ago today, January 2nd of this year. Former CIA officer warns 1,000 Al-Qaeda fighters in U.S. for next homeland attack. So we have covered the terrorist side of things ad nauseum for the past 2 years. And suffice it to say that in the 1990s, our intel agencies told other levels of law enforcement below them that there were 300 known Hezbollah terror cells in America. And each cell could have had anywhere from a handful of members to 100 members. That number now, because the border being thrown wide open the past 4 years, is many, many thousands of cells. And we've seen this coalescing of our enemies. The enemy of my friend is a friend of mine, or sorry, the enemy of my enemy is a friend of mine. And so you've got Hezbollah working with Sinaloa, working with TDS, or TDA, pardon me, Trenda Aragua. We have all of these terror cells in the country. This is just one more means of attacking us, doing economic damage, as well as, people have been losing their lives over these wildfires. It's the attacks are going to continue coming is basically what I'm getting at. So
Chris,
on this, yes, sir.
I'd like to comment on something that you're saying here. So one of the things to keep in mind that terrorists always like to be in the news. And when we look at Al-Qaeda, we know one of the reasons that Al-Qaeda wants to attack the United States is for revenge for Osama bin Laden's death. But one of the things that terrorist groups do, and it's usually with clockwork, is they claim their targets. And we've heard nobody claiming any targets yet. So just something to keep in mind.
No, great point, actually. And it's funny because this particular article that I have up is longer. I'm not going to read it. Just go grab the sit rep for tonight and y'all can read it at your leisure if you want. But like I say, this is a very long article. You can see the size of the bar on the side here. It's tiny. Like, this is a really, really long article. But the reason that I brought it up is because of what you just mentioned, actually. So at the time, they were specifically telling, their terrorist members to go set all these different things on fire. And in basically what you just suggested happened, they claimed each one of those fires to scare the bejesus out of people in Syria, saying basically, we set that fire, we set this fire, we're going to continue setting fires, we're going to, ruin your property, potentially take lives, et cetera, et cetera. So good comments on your part, S2. Jeff, I'm going to go to you on this next. When you looked into Al-Qaeda and ISIS promoting the concept of using wildfires against us, go ahead and bring us up to speed on all of the research that you did.
Okay, so first of all, when I looked up the number of fires in the United States, I looked up from 1983 till the present. So comprehensive data, this is by Statista, on wildfire-related fatalities in the United States, float somewhere around 500 deaths in the United States since 1980. And they say it's very difficult to figure out exactly how many people killed, because tens of thousands literally could have died, especially older folks, from smoke inhalation. And I think, we're talking about sowing the seeds of chaos here. That level has gone up and or down, in the different decades. 1983, that's a long time back. But I think we talk about foreign actors. Here's why I'm all about this sort of conspiracy, I guess you may call it, is foreign actors have been to some degree responsible for many of the wildfires in the United States. But I believe that if you look at any, let's go back to the conspiracy angle. Let's go back and look at any liberal group who announces the news. They've fallen in lockstep with the people that are in power, and they're spreading their message. And basically, they're useful idiots, because they're denying that this is anything other than, to a large degree, climate change. And come on, guys, we know the truth to that, right? So misinformation is a thing. Disinformation is another thing, and malinformation is a totally another thing. When they promote these, they promote, again, misinformation, speculation. Actual causes of wildfires are attributed to natural causes instead of human negligence or even human intention. Official investigations, it requires a lot of work within the different groups to try to find out what's going on. Of course, we know when that happens, there can be a diluted amount of information that we get out. It's watered down. It's not quite what it ought to be. And then we have a national security concern, and because the ideas of foreign actors deliberately causing wildfires is occasionally discussed in national security circles, and more so now. It's just that it seems like Al-Qaeda is the one that's getting the credit for it. So if you listen to the media, they'll tell you the belief in foreign actors regard to setting wildfires has been propagated by a mix of groups, often driven by misinformation, political agendas, and conspiracy theories. But guys, we know that's not true. And think about it. But if they did set them, they do cause the economic disruption, the psychological and social impact of everybody, environmental damage, straining emergency services, political or strategic message, climate of distrust and division, and propaganda recruitment. So if we observe that this was solely through the efforts of foreign actors and or their representative governments, or were they aided by our government and potentially factions thereof? Why would they do that? Diversion, smokescreens, and misdirection, guys. And I know I went a little long on that, but like I was really pumped about getting to say that. But it's true. We just got to look back at the source. Are these people acting in concert? And why would they? Because if they put something over here, what's in the left hand, what's in the right hand. And so I I don't buy any of the crap that's coming out of the media right now, and that's why people are listening to Survival Dispatch and things like this, because you're finding out truths and other ideas that you might not otherwise hear. Thanks, guys. Sorry about that.
No problem, Jeff. I mean, the way I put it towards people is we don't really have a dog in the hunt, meaning that, big pharma accounts for 75% of legacy media ad revenue during non-presidential election years, over 50% ish on presidential election years. So we don't get any money from big pharma, big tech, which I come from big tech. We don't get any money from Big Brother, big media, or anything like that. So when I say we don't have a dog in the hunt, we have nothing to gain financially by offering reports and editorials on what's going out there and homework for our audience to follow to improve on whatever the topic at hand may be. But I wanted to add one more point, because you made a good point of basically stating it's really hard to determine what the death count is. And let me just throw this one out there. So you've got millions of people in the vicinity of Los Angeles. How many of those people are inhaling carcinogenic stuff floating around in the air from all of these fires? And there's no way you can connect that to somebody dying years down the road because of whatever they're inhaling. So I agree. It's a really hard thing to try and put your finger on. But moving on to the next one here. This is kind of a reiteration of the previous articles. So if you want to read all these articles again, just go to patreon.com/survival dispatch, grab our daily sit rep situation report, and you can go ahead and read all of this at your leisure. So the next one, and I chose this article, by the way, for a specific reason. So Forbes would, be what many of us would consider legacy media. So when I find stuff like this in legacy media, and it's not part of the Mockingbird media's mantra, I tend to take more interest in it, that it's potentially has some substance to it. When you see the headlines and you watch the video and you've got like 20 different anchors all saying the same thing in lockstep, that's an indicator to me that it's probably BS and they're promoting some propaganda. But when legacy media puts an article out like this at no specific point in time and says things like there are valid reasons to link numerous deadly wildfires in Europe and the American West to actions of international arsonists, such occurrences warrant great concern, not only because they cause devastating destruction to life, property, and natural ecosystems, but also because these crimes are difficult to prevent and difficult to trace to offenders. And absolutely, like, it takes next to nothing to start these fires. So this next article here, and I'm not overly familiar with this blog, it's paperblog.com. Wildfires started by Al Qaeda as economic warfare against America. So this is claiming that fires were started by Al Qaeda. I couldn't find anything to substantiate that, so I'm not telling you, I can't verify the veracity of this report. But in this particular blog post, the author says the wildfire blaze in Yosemite National Park is now one of the largest California fires on record. The so-called rim fire, because the fire started at the rim or borders of the park, has charred nearly 184,500 acres, an area larger than the landmass of Chicago, since it erupted on August 17th. It ranks as the biggest California wildfire since October 2007. And there's a map that gives you more of an idea on the size and scope of this particular fire. But this is from the American Center for Democracy. William Scott, author of Space Wars and a former NSA official and editor of Aviation Week, said that a subtle form of economic warfare is wild land arson, setting fires in U.S. forests and grasslands. This next paragraph is really interesting. Among the cache of materials captured by the Navy SEALs from Osama bin Laden's compound in Abbottabad, Pakistan, are the Islamic terrorist group Al-Qaeda's plans, including a detailed campaign to start fires throughout the American West. U.S. officials have determined that some of the fires that burnt in California last year were ignited by Al-Qaeda operatives. So this is coming from a former National Security Administration official. S2, I want to give you a chance to weigh in on this as far as these accusations that this is not just Al Qaeda and ISIS encouraging their members to set fire to our forests here in America, but this guy's saying they've actually done it on more than one occasion.
Where's the proof?
That's my question.
This is one of the things that, like, goes back to what I said. If they did it, they'll lay claim to it. And with all of the rhetoric going on right now with Iran and China and TDA and everything that's floating around out there right now, who's to say it's not just some homeless dude that walked around in the forest with a lit cigarette and threw it down, and there we go, boom. Or in a city somewhere. You know, people say that, oh, these are the wildfires that are in forest areas, these are urban fires. Well, you know what? Urban fires start the same way. So
Can I throw in something real quick?
Of course.
Why? Tell me why this. I mean, I totally agree with everything we're talking about here, but tell me why that the legacy media, we'll just use that word. That's a good word. The legacy media is just now coming on board with this. Why for so long did they deny everything? But now all of a sudden we're acknowledging all these things that could potentially be going on. What benefit does it serve them? They're not coming at this for no reason to just taking the direction back. Oh, we're going to do a 180-degree turn. We're going to agree with everyone. I don't buy that. I don't buy that. There's a reason why they're turning in this direction now. So anyway, that's all I wanted to add.
Yeah, fair enough. As to who's Cal Fire? So Truth Recon, appreciate the comment. Cal Fire and Antifa also started fires, and we mentioned Antifa earlier. I'm not familiar with the name Cal Fire. US2?
it's some environmental nut job group.
Okay. And I'm assuming because
they're indigenous to California.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm assuming because it's got Cal in the front that it's California related. Okay. So normally we would break right here at the end of chapter 1 and have a message, then go into chapter 2. I'm going to go straight into chapter 2. We've got some messages from sponsors that I'll bring up in a little bit because I want to keep the momentum going here. And I mean, we can point our fingers in multiple different directions here, right? Maybe this was caused because of mismanagement. Maybe it's gotten a whole lot worse because Los Angeles and their fire department have focused on DEI as opposed to making sure that there's plenty of water available to feed the fire hydrants, put fires out. Maybe it's related to terrorist attacks. And I agree with you. They will claim it if that's the case. So be interested to see if anything surfaces in the next little bit. But here's another reason. So the mayor of Los Angeles, she was out of the country. She was in Ghana, in Africa. Joe Biden had sent her there to go to some inauguration, a new president or something like that. But she took about $20 million out of her fire department's budget this year, number one. And number two, she gave a bunch of their equipment away to Ukraine. Super high dollar fire trucks, for example. There's a video coming up in one of these tabs that I have open of the LA Fire Department using women's pocket bags with water in it to try and douse fires. I kid you not. So like pissing in the rain, basically. So listen to this. This mayor, this is a prime example. And God, I got to get rid of this webcam that does crazy things when I move my hands. Nobody wants to see Chris having that up close and personal. Let's go to the other side. So this is a very inept mayor, and it doesn't matter if it's female or race or anything like that. Check out her reaction when she's being questioned on the fires that are happening in her city. This is unbelievable, to be honest with you.
Do you owe citizens an apology for being absent while their homes were burning? Do you regret cutting the fire department budget by millions of dollars, Madam Mayor? Have you nothing to say today? Have you absolutely nothing to say to the citizens today? Elon Musk says that you're utterly incompetent. Are you considering your position? Madam Mayor, have you absolutely nothing to say to the citizens today who are dealing with this disaster? No apology for them? Do you think you should have been visiting Ghana while this was unfolding back home?
That's 51 seconds out of a 2-minute and 41-second video, and she does not say a single word. Even Joe Biden, in his diminished capacity, would say something at least. Yeah. So I agree. Are you drunk, lady? Maybe too much to drink on the flight back from Ghana or something. But S2, give me your thoughts on all the different things that maybe partially or maybe in together account for this situation, especially leadership.
We've talked about pointing the finger in one direction or the other, but in my view, it's multiple directions. We're not being attacked from one front. We're being attacked from all sides at this point. So you have the fire department. That's obviously this is incompetence that blames it here. We don't know who set the fires or how the fires started. They could have been an overloaded circuit that started by a transformer blowing up, whatever. We don't know how that happened. I think it's multiple directions. I don't think you can point your finger at any one particular thing. This is a confluence of things that have converged to create this situation. And the only people that are going to benefit from it are going to be, in the end, the financial industry.
Yeah, very interesting. I want to back up just for 2 seconds as to, so we had the previous comment up saying that CAL FIRE and Antifa have started fires over the years in California. I'm not familiar with CAL FIRE. Fry Daddy just said CAL FIRE is the state firefighting department. So now I'm left wondering if the person who put up the previous quote in California is suggesting that some of this has been done purposely by a government agency. And it may be. I'm not questioning that one way or the other. Wouldn't surprise me. Nothing surprises me anymore. But that's pretty explosive if they actually did that. So I'm going to move on to the next page I've got brought up. So unprecedented fires scorched 3,000 acres in Los Angeles area, forcing 49,000 to evacuate. And I brought this up because it's got some current statistics that I wanted to share with our audience. So LA fire summary: fast-moving, wind-driven fires are sweeping through the Los Angeles area, forcing mandatory evacuations for over 49,000 fires. The fires remain 0% contained. That's just mind-blowing. The Palisades fire, cause unknown, has burned nearly 15,000 acres, while the Eaton fire has scorched 10,600 acres. And these numbers have grown throughout the course of the day. AccuWeather estimates 52 billion to 57 billion in preliminary damage and economic losses. We have sent how many hundreds of billions to the Ukraine, and we got to give them not just all of our, Hauser 155 shells, but we got to give them our fire trucks as well. And then we have it with this. Governor Gavin Newsom has deployed 1,400 firefighters and declared a state of emergency. Nearly 300,000 residential and or commercial customers are without power in the LA region. NWS worst fire conditions. High winds will peak Wednesday morning. So if yesterday's the peak, it certainly hasn't resulted in the fires dying down from the latest news that I've got. Malibu residents warned about potential evacuation. And again, at the bottom of these bullets says it all: fires 0% contained. And then this is a really, not the top map, but the one that's directly below it now, the top map. These are densely populated areas. And I really appreciate the person in the chat who pointed that out, that this is not because the forests were mismanaged. And this almost makes me wonder, it seems to lend credence to potentially being arson, because some people have made comments in the chat that these have the hallmarks of arson. We have videos of arson. We have videos of people actually starting fires, which we've played. If you didn't join us in time to catch that, just go grab our SITREP situation report, link below, and you can go back and watch all the videos and read everything that we put up. But this is an unmitigated disaster. It is unbelievable. So now the number is 400,000 without power. Fires are still 0% contained. This is from an hour before we went live. So this is really, really current as far as information is concerned. Here's our friend, the DEI mayor, who can't speak 2 words. Look at this drone shot from Pacific Palisades. S2, you were saying something earlier. I don't remember if we had gone live or not with regards to drones and the heat coming off of these types of fires. Refresh my memory. Were you essentially saying that it's unusual for drones to be flying because of the heat rising and coming off of this, or not?
I think it would be unusual at that level if it's still a hot area, because the electronics on these drones, at least hobby grade drones, are pretty sensitive to heat and could actually melt. They have wires and all kinds of things in there that if they get real hot, they'll melt and short out.
So I want to make sure our audience, especially new people, understand. So S2, Marine, and heavily involved in technical stuff his entire career, builds his own drones. So this is not just speculation on his part as far as, what drones are and are not capable of, those sort of things. He's our in-house expert when it comes to drones. And that's a really interesting point that you brought up, S2. Appreciate you sharing that with us. So here's another picture. We showed one earlier where the flames were not at the top of the hill for communications in LA, and now they are. And this is approximately 5 hours ago. So a major emergency is unfolding as flames from the Eaton fire have now reached the telecommunications station atop Mount Wilson to the north of Los Angeles. These towers are used for TV, radio stations, and critical communication systems for first responders across Los Angeles County. I mean, and again, we don't have any proof that these fires were started by terrorists. We have intel saying that they aspire to do these things, and maybe they've done this to a smaller extent in America previously. But if I'm a terrorist and I'm going to start these wildfires, number one, I agree you would target an urban area to cause the maximum amount of economic damage. But number two, what a crazy way to take out communications. Now, with that being said, I have noticed some of the news people, legacy media, have been using Starlink and saying that that's by far been the most reliable forms of communication. So that's my next question for you, S2. Based on the smoke, and some of the pictures that show the cloud of smoke hanging over LA are just something straight out of a dystopian movie. Will those satellite dishes work through that, or does that obfuscate their ability to connect to the Starlink satellites?
That's kind of a tricky question, because while satellites do require line of sight, they have some visibility through things like smoke. I can't really say I'd have to be there to see the environment to say, yeah, no, that's not going to work.
Okay. Fair enough. I just wanted to, get a handle on if it got that bad, would even Starlink be down for the count? But hopefully that's not the case. So this next tab that I've got pulled up, fire insurance policies canceled before Pacific Palisades wildfires. So let's just assume that these fires were planned by people who want to acquire the land, which was the conspiracy theory in Maui. Canceling people's fire insurance in advance would seem to, coincide with that type of motivation. I mean, let's hope that that's not the case. I mean, that's beyond evil. But in the months leading up to devastating wildfires in Pacific Palisades, Los Angeles, insurance giants like State Farm and Liberty Mutual canceled thousands of homeowners' fire insurance policies. This has left many residents in high-risk areas without coverage just as wildfires began to ravage their neighborhoods. The decisions by these insurers coincide with broader industry trends of reducing exposure in areas prone to natural disasters, prompting legal actions from affected homeowners and discussions on the sustainability of current insurance models in California. So I'm going to come to you in just a second, Jeff, but I want to state that we've been facing the same thing here in Florida. We have an absolute catastrophe on our hands with home insurance here. And I'm not going to tell all the background again, because I've, voiced it several times on Survival Dispatch News. But suffice it to say that obviously the biggest threat for us here in Florida is hurricanes. And there are multiple home insurance policies now. When they came up for renewal, they very quietly removed any coverage for hurricanes. And then somebody at their mortgage company has discovered that, hey, wait a minute, all of the clients of this particular insurer are not insured against hurricane damage. And then what's happened is the banks come to those homeowners and say, your insurance is no good. And if you can't get somebody to insure you for hurricanes, you have to buy your insurance through us. So we were $1,200 a year in insurance on our home. We do not have a big fancy home like we did in years gone by. And then our insurance company dropped us, not because of anything that we had done. And we ended up having to get our insurance through the bank at $5,600 a year. And my wife just found somebody who will pick us up for $2,600, $2,700, $2,800 a year. And we're happy to pay that, which is still an egregious number. But this canceling of coverage seems very coincidental, Jeff. I mean, put your tinfoil hat on for a minute and humor me here. I mean, what are your thoughts?
Well, I'm about to put my daughter on my car insurance. So I got a feeling that's about to go up. But think about this. Why would this not be? Let's just tinfoil hat. Let's not say, why would the government not be telling these people to take this course of action so they could move in and take care of that insurance to get control over it? Not because they're going to make any money, because we already know they don't do that with anything they touch. They certainly didn't do it with Amtrak. They're not doing it with the flood insurance in South Texas or around the Houston area, Louisiana, where they had the big floods when the dams broke. Wasn't the dams, but it was the walls broke.
The levee.
Yeah, the government is. Who's to say they're not trying to get their hands in this, not from the perspective of getting money, but to get control. And so to manipulate an outcome that they want to manipulate. We all know that things are better in the private sector. It's better when you do things like that. But the government red tape is absolutely and completely imbecilic for the most part. And yet we still are going to end up being faced with that if we're not careful, because the only people going to take us is the government at that point. So I don't really know if that answers the question, saying but I'm just seeing that through a conspiracy lens, and that's what it seems like to me.
Fair enough, no problem at all. So this next article we've got pulled up: LA fire captain, some supplies aren't designed for firefighting. Wind kept us from getting water from above. And I'm not going to play this video because we're running a little bit long on time, but if you go grab our sit rep, you can watch this one because I want to pivot to the next couple here. So DEI means people die. This is from Elon. We're not the biggest fans of Elon. We give him credit for some of the good stuff he's done, but he's certainly not the Messiah. So Robbie Starbuck, who's prolific in exposing companies, especially in the DEI space, he's a legend in that space for bringing to light what some of these corporations have done. Do you really think that DEI really made the damage from these fires worse? Yeah, I do. DEI was the fire chief focus, and the department plus the city spent money on DEI while all these other things were not addressed. 32-second video.
Super inspired. She took time out of her already busy schedule to tell us about her vision for the department's future, one that includes a 3-year strategic plan to increase diversity.
People ask me, well, what number are you looking for? So I'm not looking for a number. It's never enough.
Out of 3,300 city firefighters, only 115 are women right now. She's already looking at ways to change that. She's quick to point out that doing so has a greater purpose, attracting the best and brightest for the job.
They feel included, they feel valued, and they feel part of a cohesive team.
The chief also checks another box when it comes to inclusivity and diversity at this department. She's a proud member of the LGBTQ community.
That just kind of opens the door of people that thought, I didn't even know that was an opportunity for me.
I got one more tab I'm going to pull up, and then S2, you can say your piece on this. So from this post, DEI should never be a factor in hiring, especially when human lives depend on having the absolute best. This is why DEI must die. So hiring people and not basing your hiring decision on merit, excellence, and intelligence puts you in a situation like Boeing, for example, which was a big proponent of DEI, and they've had one plane after another fail and or crash. And we've got a whole bunch of incompetent people involved in LA here, specific to these fires, where, again, they cut $20 million from the fire department. They spent billions of dollars on DEI initiatives and homeless people, money that previously went to their fire departments. They've given away high-end fire engines to Ukraine, while we have firemen in LA trying to put fires out with women's handbags filled with water. S2, you get to run with this one. Take it wherever you want. We'll pivot to a message from our sponsors after you tell us what your thoughts on DEI and these fires is. I think you're on mute, S2.
I prefer using the acronym with DEI as do everything incompetently. And that's what they've done here. I'll give you a case in point where we mentioned the CAL FIRE organization in California. These people have an aviation fleet that contains Grumman S-2T air tankers, Bell Super Huey helicopters, Sikorsky S-70I helicopters, North American OV-10A Bronco Air Tactical Aircraft, C-130 Hercules tankers. They have they run at 14 air tanker bases, 10 CAL FIRE helitack bases, and they are the largest civil aerial firefighting fleet in the world. You're telling me they couldn't put these fires out. And when you read through this CAL FIRE's plan for 2024, they're into their necks deep into this DEI crap too. I'm sorry, you can't tell me that these fires couldn't have been put out in a heartbeat, because they also tout that they can reach the state responsibility area in approximately 20 minutes with the goal of keeping 90% of fires at 10 acres or less.
Wow, great job on research there, S2. I knew you were going to have a good answer. I didn't realize it was going to be quite that good.
This is incompetence at its best.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, there are people in the state and local governments that need to be held responsible financially and civilly. And Gavin Newsom is one of them. I'm sure he's running his ass down to Mar-a-Lago right now to kiss Trump's ass to say, help me out, brother, will you? And then the mayor, she needs to be held accountable, and the fire chief needs to be held accountable.
Yeah, I think, I don't remember if it was today or yesterday, Gavin Newsom did a press release and said that he fully expected that Donald Trump wasn't going to give California a penny, because he doesn't like Gavin Newsom, and therefore he was going to screw California in the process. And I don't see that happening. He didn't do anything like that in his first term. I don't think he'll do anything like that in his second term. As a matter of fact, I think that when Trump's back in office, we will see things immediately improve for our family and friends in Western North Carolina who are still struggling. And these poor people will be helped as well. I don't foresee Trump turning his back on Americans. So we got a quick message here from one of our sponsors, Sawyer Products. We will be right back.
The Sawyer Mini is the most versatile personal filtration system available. It's a perfect solution for backpacking, hiking, hunting, fishing, scouting, international travel, and emergency preparedness. At a mere 2 ounces, the Mini fits in the palm of your hand and can filter up to 100,000 gallons of water from any freshwater lake, river, or stream. The Sawyer Mini has a 0.1 micron absolute pore size. It was tested to 10 million parts of bacteria and 1 million parts of protozoa without a single breakthrough. This is the highest level filters can be tested to, so we're confident these are the highest rates of filtration available.
So we've got 5 more news headlines to cover here in chapter 2, and then we'll be into chapter 3, which is zany headlines and funny memes and all that sort of stuff. So this is really interesting. I don't know if either one of you caught this. So this is Mike Johnson that we're looking at here. He is the soy boy mayor of Denver, who's threatened Donald Trump and threatened Tom Homan that he's going to have his police department defend illegal aliens against Tom Homan's deportation efforts. And he's claimed time and again that the illegal invaders, they're good for Denver, so on and so forth. And now he's caught in a kerfuffle where he has been busing illegals out of Denver over to Aurora, which has a conservative Republican mayor who's absolutely pissed that he's doing this. Jeff, I'll go to you first. I mean, who in their right mind as an American politician would subject their voters to this type of danger? It blows my mind. How on earth can you justify keeping violent illegal aliens in your country?
He is hell-bent on holding on to his ideology. He's, like we talked about this last week, his back's in a corner now. He doesn't really have any other place to go. He's ran his mouth so much and he's talked so much. And he has to back up what he says, and he doesn't really care if it hair lips the Pope. He's going to do it anyway. And this guy, if he gets elected next time, I'm just going to be terribly surprised. Even though Colorado would actually probably reelect him.
I'll be honest with you. I would love to see him and Michelle Wu, the mayor of Boston, and the rest of them who've been saying we're essentially going to harbor illegal aliens. I can't wait to see Tom Homan put them in jail and see how fast they change their tune, because Tom Homan's not playing around at all.
No.
And for those who are just following Survival Dispatch News, we're friends with Tom Homan. We've worked with Tom Homan. We raised $350,000 for his Border 911 efforts, and we have a lot of faith in him. Did you have something else you wanted to add, Jeff, or was that S2?
No, sir. Earlier I wanted to say we were talking about the DEI thing. I prefer MEI, which is merit, excellence, and intelligence. One of the things people don't take into consideration, if you're familiar with New Mexico, you know that down in the Cimarron Canyon, about halfway to Eagle's Nest, is a place called Ute Park. And if you've ever been down through there, we went through there, I believe it was in 2018, they had a fire that burned almost 40,000 acres. And if you look at what those guys have to go through and able to get their equipment up to where they need to put the fire out, it's unbelievable. And I'll be honest with you, those are big strapping guys, and it's wearing them out. I don't know how you could take something like DEI and say, okay, little 120-pound young lady, go ahead and haul this fire hose up that 22-degree grade. And by the way, it's only about 1,500, 2,000 feet up there, but you should be able to make it. And then put it to, I don't see who is making up these rules. But you know what? I don't even know what to say about that. It's ridiculous. I'm just going to stop right there because I'm going to start cussing. It's ridiculous.
No worries.
I'm not going to cuss, I promise.
It's all good. It's okay. So S2, give me your thoughts on this. This was a pretty provocative post. We could absolutely take Greenland if we wanted to, and no European power could stop us. We're the masters of the Western Hemisphere, and no effeminate Eurocuck has any right or any power to tell us what we can do in our neighborhood. The global free ride is over, and the bill is due. Take the land, oil, and rare earth elements to power American businesses. What do you think of this position on taking Greenland, S2?
I think it's a slippery slope, because it kind of goes against our principles that if a deal is reached with the owning power of that land, that's one thing, but to just go in and take it is another thing. American excellence has always been based on, when we've fought in wars, has been going over and fighting in these wars, occupying the land, and then giving it back to the people, not keeping it, because we very well could have kept Japan.
Right.
But we didn't do that. We gave it back. So when we look on the moral side of things, I don't think taking it is the choice of words I would use. I would say negotiation to buy it would be one thing.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So Jeff, we'll come back to you for the next one. Since we're in chapter 2, I like to flip them back and forth. John Fetterman will be visiting President Trump at Mar-a-Lago. He'll be the first sitting Democrat senator to do so. I think it's pretty reasonable that if the president would like to have a conversation or invite someone to have a conversation, to have it. And no one is my gatekeeper, Fetterman said. So Fetterman gets elected and he's a complete mess. And then he has a stroke and he comes out based. I mean, this guy kills me. What are your thoughts on Fetterman, essentially?
I think Fetterman's got some sense to him. I think no matter what, he's still a liberal, and he still believes, he still has the ideological perspective of that side of the aisle. However, I think he is a politician in the sense that he can find out that there's something that Trump could probably do for him. And if he makes nice and, and is reasonable, then they can come to an agreement. I don't think it's a bad idea for that guy, no matter, he's like, nobody's his gatekeeper, right? He's going to go meet with Trump. Let's see what we can do, because we still got constituents to represent, and he might be making a good decision.
Yeah, I don't say anything wrong with it at all either. Back to you, S2. So Riley Gaines, she's been a big proponent of keeping men out of female sports or boys out of girl sports. Huge win for girls and women everywhere. This morning, a federal court ruled in favor of reality. Biden's Title IX rewrite has been vacated nationwide. Common sense is slowly returning. Thank you. I can't imagine being a guy and wanting to compete in women's sports in the first place, but clearly I'm not, that person. But this Title IX stuff's a pretty big deal as far as girls' sports are concerned.
Well, Chris, you're not mentally ill, so that we know of.
No, I'm not mentally ill, trust me.
So yeah, I think I had my first experience with a tranny when I went to the gym a few years ago, and I'm standing there working out, and I'm just like, I'm doing heavy deadlifts. I mean, I've got probably 4 or 5 45-pound plates on either side, and I'm doing heavy deadlifts, and this thing walks over to me and starts talking to me, and I was just like, and it was going into the women's locker room, and I didn't know what to say at that point. I was pretty offended by that, because my wife goes into that locker room, and I'm thinking, what are the intents here? Because then it started coming in with its gay friends, and those gay friends are going into the men's locker room because they don't identify as a female. So it presents a very uncomfortable situation where you want to say to yourself, okay, if I ever see a man walking into a woman's restroom and my wife or my daughter is in there, I'm going to gently show him the direction he should be going towards the room.
Fair enough. I don't disagree. Just a quick story. We were in Key West, my buddy Billy and I, and Billy's like 6'3", cowboy boots on, 6'5", and I was competing 275 at the time. So we walked all the way down Duval and turned around. We were coming back the other way, and there's this girl standing on the sidewalk. She's got legs up to here, and from a distance appears to be quite striking. And we get up close, and I'm walking closest to the street, and Billy's beside me, and this thing reached out and grabbed a hold of Billy's arm and says, "Come on inside for a drink." I was like, yeah, catch you later, Billy. I'm just going to keep on trucking. I shit you not. The next morning we went to get back on our bikes to ride back here to Central Florida. He had a bruise identical to the big old mitts that this thing had on him, fingerprints and everything, or like finger marks. Golly, it was funny. Come on inside for a drink.
Wasn't asking. He wasn't asking.
You know what to do, right?
Yeah, you had a hold on Billy, that's for sure. So actually, it's kind of ironic that the next article that comes up. So Mark Zuckerberg is trying to save his ass by He's fired 44,000 fact checkers, which were just sensors, right? And he had backdoors available to this administration and other administrations around the world to log in and delete people, track people, suppress them, so on and so forth. Now he's gone in even further. So the parent company of platforms like Facebook and Instagram has updated its content moderation policies. These changes now permit users to allege mental illness and discussions about transgenderism and homosexuality, sparking debate over freedom of speech versus hate speech protections. Critics argue this shift could lead to increased discrimination, while supporters believe it aligns with allowing open political and religious discourse. So, Jeff, you got this one, lands on you.
Okay, so I think our boy Trump got to him. I think he saw the handwriting on the wall, and he's going like, I think I would like to stay in power here. I'm going to keep my business. But this guy's training with MMA guys. You know that, right?
I did.
He's training with them. And listen, the sorriest guy out there that doesn't know anything about that kind of fighting could get beat up by a guy like this. Now, what kind of shame? What a shame that would be. So I think Trump could take him, though, And if you don't believe it, just ask Trump. But I think this guy's I don't believe it for a minute. All right, I'm sorry. I don't believe this guy's being. He's come to Jesus all of a sudden, but he's saying the right things anyway.
Yeah, he's a snake and always has been.
Yeah, I don't trust him for anything.
Fake it till you make it.
Yeah, for sure.
There you go. So that's the end of chapter 2. I just want to briefly mention one of our sponsors here. And check it out, by the way. I got some new stuff. I actually had a long conversation with Dr. Chad today from Native Hydrate and Native Path. Really smart guy, really interesting. But he sent me some of this for free. Plus, my wife and I have spent hundreds of dollars on buying it as well. If your energy level is not good and you're drinking sodas and sweet teas, which spike your blood sugar, and then your body has to produce insulin to bring it back down again, then it crashes, then you have to drink another Monster or something to raise it back up again. If you want to have a big increase in energy, stop drinking that stuff and start drinking this. Absolutely amazing results with this as far as energy level. It does a bunch of other good things as well, but I'm not a scientist. I can just tell you, energy wise, this is a much better way to go than Monsters and other drinks like that. And the crazy thing, Jeff, and I know both of you have taken, BCAAs before, branched chain amino acids. This stuff actually tastes good, and most BCAAs taste like ass. So it's another good reason to promote them. There's a link down below, nativehydrate.com/dispatch. You can get up to 44% off of any products that you buy. Yes, sir.
Their collagen is really good too. I've been on their collagen I did a week of collagen loading on the front end of starting to take their product. And now I'm just on the regular cycle of taking their collagen, and I've noticed a physical difference in the way my skin appears now.
Collagen is a basic building block, and I don't think a lot of people realize how important it is to maintaining elasticity of everything from your arteries and veins to your skin and everything else. Collagen is a winner. And it's funny you should say that, S2, because Dr. Chad and I were having a discussion on that today, and somebody is making a concerted effort to say people are taking too much collagen and that it has negative effects. And he said that is just not the case. You ready for this? He has over 1 million customers who've bought his collagen, and he said he's never got negative feedback from anybody. And there's no such thing as taking too much collagen. And somebody, though, is trying to torpedo that. Big pharma, big food, somebody, right?
But the bioavailability of that product is extremely good, because you can take some things and you get nothing out of them. And you can take other things that seemingly don't appear quite so good, but it's the delivery system. And that seems to be a very bioavailable product. And I can see why it would work. I haven't taken it yet, but just looking into it.
He needs to come up with a pre-workout drink now.
Yeah, a good suggestion. I'll mention that to him, by the way. I'm at the end of the day, I'm super happy with his products, and You know, we've got relationships with over 300 vendors. There's about 24 that we stand behind, and they're one of them. All of our sit reps, by the way, have a new section. There are 24 favorite companies for survival prepping stuff are in there. There's discount links, discount codes, all that good stuff. But there's the vast majority of companies we don't promote. We're not in the business hurting other people's businesses. So we don't say, hey, we got this product and it sucks. We just don't endorse it, and we don't put it on our channel or anywhere else. All right. So let's jump into chapter 3 here. Always good for a laugh, or when it's not good for a laugh, it'll make you shake your head. And this first one I've already alluded to, which is mind blowing. Check this out. 250 billion to Ukraine. Our surplus fire equipment gone to Ukraine. Los Angeles firefighters using handbags to put out a fire. January 2025.
What in the world? The firemen don't have hoses, so they're like literally using purses, women's handbags, filling up women's handbags to put out fires. Look at this. What in the world? LAFD fire department using women's handbags to put out fires. What is going on here?
That's a pumper truck. Hook a freaking hose up to it.
Tell me that is just not insanity, right? I mean, make you
They
shake
probably
your
can't
head.
lift. They probably can't lift the hose.
I don't know. There's something going on. Next one, Karen Pence showed zero respect for Melania when Melania extended her hand in greeting. It's absolutely childish and shameful. Even Mike Pence and Trump shook hands. When you're in the public eye, actually face to face with a person where cameras are on you, you need to act a certain way. Melania didn't do anything to Karen. Melania is showing nothing but discretion. It's not like Trump had his FBI go through her underwear drawer for the entire world to see and know about. So 18-second video.
Leland, good morning to you. We can see President-elect Trump now entering the room for this morning's service.
Al Gore, Mike Pence there with former President Trump. I'm not sure former Vice President Pence and Donald Trump have seen each other since.
Did you see the face on that sourpuss? Let me go back to that, see if we can capture. Look at that. And is anybody surprised that she's a Karen? Like she's a real Karen?
Oh, you ought to seen the way Bush dissed Trump today.
Oh, yeah. Was that at Carter's funeral as well?
Oh, yeah. Bush just snubbed him hard. He just walked right on by, didn't even acknowledge his presence.
S2, wasn't he sitting between Trump and wasn't he sitting between Bush and Obama? Was that how that was?
Trump was on the end seat. Obama came down and sat down beside Trump.
Wow, I would have loved to heard that conversation.
Yeah, my thoughts on it was this. Hey, Barack, you know Cash is going to be the first one you're getting his investigating.
Right? So you want to talk explosive. Check this out. So this officer lied under oath in the Derek Chauvin case that what he did by putting his knee on his shoulder blade caused George Floyd to die. We know it was a fentanyl overdose. He had 2 different types of fentanyl in them. One of them 50 times more powerful than the base analog. And not only did she lie, and she's been promoted since then, by the way, they have taught this restraint technique forever and a day. And it's to put your knee on the perp's shoulder blade, not their neck. We now have cameras, footage from different angles showing that Chauvin did not have his knee on George Floyd's neck. I mean, he was just stabbed in jail not too long ago, or prison, I should say, 21 times. He does not deserve to be there. The guy died from a fentanyl overdose, for crying out loud. But listen to this.
There's also new evidence with Chauvin that they're talking about letting him repeal, or what do they call it? Repealing his case or something.
Yeah, commuting it, perhaps commuted sentence.
Yeah,
but and I don't know that I'm going to play the whole 2 minutes and 7 seconds of this video, but this is explosive information.
We've included in this brief picture after picture of this, in fact, technique being used during Minneapolis police training. We also have a photo of Katie Blackwell herself that appeared in a Minneapolis police yearbook dating back to 2014, where she was restraining a suspect during some rioting that took place after a hockey game on the campus of the University of Minnesota. And she is, in fact, putting her knee on a suspect's, what appears to be the upper back or neck area, an actual picture. And so the officer who put together that yearbook is actually part of these declarations to say, here she is doing this exact same thing.
And I believe we have a clip, guys, that we can play that of you asking Chief Blackwell about this.
Hi, Katie. Hi, how are you? Fine. Yeah, actually, I have a few questions for you. Are you aware that 14 former and current Minneapolis police officers say you lied during Derek Chauvin's trial and perjured yourself? What's the truth here? I'd like to talk to you about the lawsuit you filed against myself and Alpha News. 34 police officers have come forward to say that MRT was trained by the Minneapolis Police Department. I've been trying to get in touch with you. You obviously declined my interview request. Don't you think people deserve the truth?
And that would be a no.
That's a mic drop.
Boy, howdy, is it ever. There's the next one I'm not going to play. It's a full hour long. But this is a deep dive that Jack Posobiec did today on this. And 34 current and former Minneapolis police officers come forward to say Derek Chauvin's neck restraint was trained and authorized by the MPD. Chief Blackwell lied. So again, she got promoted to the chief after she perjured herself. Now that we have the additional camera footage, we know from the ME unequivocally that George Floyd died from fentanyl and that Derek Chauvin's knee was not on his neck. It will continue to be a travesty of justice if they do not commute his sentence, forgive it, overturn it, whatever. Moving on to the next one here. Hats off to this brave California firefighter pilot. He takes a huge risk, lands on sea, refills seawater, and takes off. I'm not going to turn the audio on because there's, I got to turn that back off. A lot of wind noise in the back. So he basically strafed the surface of the ocean, refilled his tanks, and then took back off again. Pretty impressive move on his part. So I think this is the part where he gets airborne again. There you go. And then carried on. There's another point to this, by the way, and somebody mentioned it in the chat, and I meant to mention it after they did. Biden was in LA yesterday, and most of the day there was no aerial firefighting going on because Air Force One and Joe Biden were in the greater LA area. So everything continued to burn yesterday, 100% unabated because Joe Biden was in town. Unbelievable. Moving to the next one here. Right in the non-binaries. Do it again. 21 seconds.
I was just violently attacked.
By who?
By her. We were just arguing. She used offensive and violent language that violated my rights as an individual.
All right, Mom, keep going. Go. We've zapped 3 of them this morning. They're everywhere today.
Oh my God. The funny part is funny, not funny. They're putting people in prison in Great Britain who cause people anxiety online or publish anything bad about the invaders. Tommy Robinson is currently in jail again because of his 5-part docuseries called The Rape of Britain. British politicians have been covering this up for 20 years. We did a deep dive on it a couple nights ago. The official claim is 250,000 young British girls were raped. Other people are saying the number is well over 1 million. Regardless of how many it is, it's not good. So moving on here, I wish we had time to play the entire Megyn Kelly tirade against the fire chief in LA as well as the mayor. And it's not this video, but in the longer version, when the mayor didn't say anything, which we played that video, she just like a deer in the headlights there. She spoke later on and she was reading off a teleprompter. And as she's reading, it says, and you can get help at URL. I kid you not.
HTTP.
Yeah. You can get more information at URL.
It's a
All right.
teleprompter lessons from Biden.
Apparently. So, minute and 20-second video.
Who gives a shit if the fire chief is gay? I'm sorry, but who gives a flying fig about who she likes to sleep with? Can you fight the fucking fires, madam? That's the relevant question. We don't care about your lady parts, and we don't care who you want having access to them. Can you fight fires? Can you make sure there's water in the fire hydrants when you realize in Ventura County, this is a massive problem? When you realize that California is going through a drought where they haven't had rain in weeks and months, I don't care who turns you on. And you know why they have only 100 women in a squad of 3,300? Because women tend to be smaller and not as strong. And unless you lower the requirements to become a firefighter, most women can't pass the test. This is an absurdity. This is just like the Secret Service and what happened with Trump. We needed all these women in there who weren't even tall enough to protect the 6'3" president. Under this woman, Ms. Crowley, the department created a diversity, equity, and inclusion bureau to train firefighters not on refilling the hydrants or what to do when they're empty, but on the importance of DEI.
It's not too often that she gets so passionate that she, has difficulty articulating herself. She's very well spoken, but she was clearly fired up over the DEI officials in LA. Moving on to the next one here. I can't even put into words how horrific what is happening to people in West North Carolina today. FEMA kicking thousands of people out of hotels in sub-freezing temperatures, massive car lines for propane and buddy heaters. People in donated RVs can't keep warm, complete panic. I'm not going to play this video at all now because S2 got us an update literally just seconds before we went live. Can you share that with the audience, S2?
This is not a true story. What's happening right now, so I'll take this one step at a time. FEMA actually extended hotel stays for 500 people. They're not kicking people out of the hotels. The massive car lines for propane and buddy heaters, if there's any video footage of that, that probably came at the beginning, as well as the RVs, that probably came at the beginning of the cleanup efforts, because what's happening now is there are still people on the ground that are actually delivering propane to people in places where they're staying.
Okay, I appreciate that update, S2. Thank you. Moving on to the next one. This harassment campaign is interesting. If I had time, I would figure out who started it. So Karen again, which is, I guess, the universe's sense of humor. She posted to James Woods, or with regards to James Wood, losing his home to burning it down, and said that this is karma calling. You got what you deserve for being a conservative. And here she's claiming, she doesn't know who's behind it. And somebody community noted her. She did. Karen Piper posted just one day ago, James Wood house is burning down. It's karma calling. I mean, the disconnect is, I guess, typical for people like her. But moving on to the next one, that is actually the same picture that we used for our thumbnail last night. It's a great picture, but great play on words. New York Post always has great covers. So Hell A instead of LA, pretty suiting. Next one up, scientists warn climate change will continue to affect the locations that the government wants to purchase at a discounted price. Sounds like tinfoil hat stuff to me, right? The next two are pretty funny here. Exclusive. Trump has higher favorable rating than Disney. The very next one, nearly a quarter of Americans avoid Disney movies over leftist politics. It's kind of just very interesting as far as where the country's head is at. It's clearly we're making progress away from the toxic left. Next one up, they didn't fill the reservoirs. They cut 17 million from the fire budget, actually 20 million. They sent our supplies to Ukraine. They fired firefighters for not getting the jab. They didn't comply with brush clearing. They halted prescribed burns. They let storm water wash out to sea. But yes, this is all caused by climate change. And last but not least, California liberalism in a single photo. A man pours almond milk onto a fire hotspot outside a home near the Eaton Wildfire, Altadena, California.
Wearing a mask.
Right. Well, you know, I mean, it's there's probably COVID in those, in the fires. So I want to quickly mention that we're going to be in Vegas for a week for SHOT Show. It's coming up really, really soon. And our friends at Flex Industries, one of our main sponsors, is going to be sending us with some triggers to give away. So we'll be announcing on our social media, probably X in particular, times and places in LA. And if you come meet up with us, you'll probably end up in one of our videos, but you'll also get a free trigger, compliments of Flex Industries. I'm going to play just a short video here. It's our friend Tactical Carl, pardon me, with the 3MR trigger for the AR platform. Very impressive performance, not illegal and not encumbered by patents like reset triggers. So chances are pretty good if you hook up with us at SHOT Show, you'll have a chance to meet Tactical Carl. You'll have a chance to meet Mark Chopper, we had on last week, whose home was raided in the middle of the night by the ATF. They claimed that he had machine guns, which he didn't. They pointed guns at his children. They made them stand outside for extended period of time in 20-degree weather. Mark is going to sue the ATF's ass off, rightfully so. But we'll all be together in Vegas for SHOT Show. Pay attention to our social media stuff. Would love to meet up with you and would love to give you some free triggers from our friends at flexindustries.com. And if you buy something from them, they've got this killer Glock trigger, by the way, called the G-Flex, and I'll be shooting content here shortly with it. It's 100% legal, unlike the Glock switches, which are not legal. And like I said, the performance is great. Lifetime warranty. The owner of the company is a personal friend of mine. He stands behind everything that they do. So moving on from there, we're now at the homework part of the episode. So these are things that we drop on you, our audience, as things that you can do in light of whatever the main topic of the night is. If you follow the comment section for a lot of podcasts, you'll see disenfranchised people say, my vote doesn't count, or there's nothing I can do that has any effect on this. You know, all I see are a bunch of talking heads. And I've been adamant since we started Survival Dispatch News 364 episodes ago that we would provide actionable things for our audience to do. And we're pretty proud of the work we've accomplished there, because we get amazing emails from people who've gone and taken training, firearms training, that they didn't even consider prior to that, first aid training, the list goes on. So I've got 3 bullets that I'm going to go to you first, Jeff, and then S2 for your thoughts on homework for our audience. Number 1, stay vigilant. Being aware of your surroundings is crucial. Look for unusual behavior, unattended bags, or items that seem out of place. Vigilance can help in spotting potential threats early. And so my message to people, when you're in public, especially busy places, phones down, eyes up. That's the quickest and easiest thing you can do as far as improving your situational awareness is concerned. Number 2, report suspicious activity. If you notice something suspicious, report it to law enforcement or through official channels like the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. If you see something, say something campaign, they have an online form you can fill out. Indicators of suspicious activity include expressed or implied threats, unusual purchases of materials that could be used for explosives, or people taking pictures of security arrangements. So anybody who's flown in and out of Israel can tell you, for example, not only have they not had a plane hijacked ever in history, they don't have anything like the TSA. What they do have is the minute that you arrive on the grounds of an airport, they stop everybody, every vehicle, and ask 2 simple questions. What's your name and what's your destination? A lot of bad guys trip up on that. They pause, they hesitate, they give off signals that indicate they're not telling the truth. They get pulled in. Then from there, they go inside to the counter to check a bag and get their boarding pass. The people who man the desks in Israel at their airports are trained in human behavior, body language. They ask prying questions to try and trip people up. And in addition to that, There's all kinds of undercover officers looking for, weird behavior from people. It takes on average in their busiest airports around 15 minutes from the time you park your car to the time you're actually at your gate. They're very efficient at it, and it's all predicated on being able to spot bad behavior. The third and final point for me is to support local law enforcement by providing tips or information. You can aid law enforcement in their efforts to prevent terrorism, especially sheriff's office. This might involve reporting through anonymous tip lines or directly to officers in your area. Those are my 3 homework items. Jeff, do you have any for our audience?
Yes, sir. I would look into getting a self-defense instructor if it was possible, because it's not always about what art you take. There are trolls out there all day long that are going to tell you that it's not any good. You should be doing something. Doing something is always better than doing nothing. And once you get into a martial arts school, they'll teach you proper etiquette. They'll teach respect to kids. I've got countless stories about that, and they will, if you're lucky, they will inform you of the first point you made, which is, if you're in a restaurant and you see somebody come in with a 3-piece suit on and a pair of flip-flops, that's something to have a look at. Something if you walk. I teach cane self-defense. Now, I'm not on the line with some of these guys out there, but I can spin a cane, and find a tool that suits you, that you can carry around, and you could get on an airplane with, you could go in a store with, any one of those things, and learn from somebody who is better than you, which in my case was a lot of people, and learn how to look normal, learn how to observe, and practice your art when you're not. Think of it as an art, but it's more than that. And be vigilant. Keep your head on a swivel. I've never met Tony Blauer, but boy, would that is on my bucket list, because we have practiced so many of the things that he's talked about with regard to being aware, being alert, and not having your head up your ass when you go somewhere. I mean, you could turn a phone into a deadly weapon. There's no doubt about that. There's so many things that you can use, but typically, or more appropriately, the idea would be to observe something and get the hell out of the way. Get away from it. Get your family, get your wife, your child, your kids, your friends, whatever. Get them out of that vicinity, and then tell somebody what's going on.
So Tony Blauer is a personal friend of mine, and we've done a number of webinars and videos in person together. Pardon me. I'll be with him at SHOT Show as well, so expect to see Tony Blauer on. John Wheaton, my co-host, will be there. Dave Kemp will be there. I introduced them to Tony a while ago. So one of the episodes that we broadcast from SHOT Show will have Tony Blauer, preeminent world expert on sudden violence. There's nobody who even remotely compares to him. And I'll bring up 2 quick things, because you said tactical cane first and foremost. These are fake Sharpies, and we carry them on planes all the time. Would not be fun getting stabbed by that. It's made out of the same plastic or composite, I should say, that's used to actually make knife blades. So it looks like a Sharpie, but in reality, it's G10. G10. That's it. Thank you for saving me there. And the next one up, because Jeff mentioned tactical canes, there are some absolutely crazy tactical canes that you can buy for not a lot of money. And nobody's going to take your cane away when you board your plane, unless you have one that has a built-in taser and they catch you with that. But otherwise, if you're concerned about flying, get you a tactical cane and some fake Sharpies. All right, S2, let you wrap it up.
Okay. My first suggestion is check out your fire preps. Do you have fire extinguishers in your house? Do you have other things that you could use to put out a fire, like a wool blanket, for instance? Not many people know this. Make sure you get 100% wool, because wool doesn't burn. And you can soak them in water and whatever and throw those over smaller fires. So that's first thing on the list. Second thing on the list is check out your fire departments. Check out your emergency services. What is their operational plans? They usually post this crap online because they're really proud of it if they're into DEI. So they'll have it right out there in front of the world for you to see. Check that out. And if you have a problem with that, maybe it's time that you start attending some of your county commissioners or some of your city managers meetings and find out, is this what's happening in California? Is what we're into if we're going to have an emergency of this sort happening? Maybe it's time to start getting rid of the DEI and start using MEI, as Jeff said.
Yeah, 100%. So, quick comment. Somebody said, I thought G10 was for the handles. No, it can be used for blades as well. Very sharp blades at that, as well as the fake Sharpies that I showed y'all. And I'll just go back to Amazon quickly because good comments on your part as to the fire blankets are really effective. We keep a couple in the kitchen of both of our homes because if you have a grease fire or something like that and somebody throws water on it, it'll actually spread the fire all over the place. But a fire blanket, pretty good way to put it out. Great advice, great suggestion on your part, S2. So I do want to share one more thing that I meant to share earlier. I got an email from our friend Matthew Nugent. So he was a captain in the Army. He was a West Point grad. He's good friends with General Vallely. They are co-founders of the MacArthur Society. And he sent me this list of a dozen things related to the fires in California. And I want to read them off because it's a great list and it's clear and concise. So this perfect storm in Los Angeles is the combination of, number one, State Farm General Insurance Company decision that resulted in the cancellation of over 72,000 homeowners policies, mostly in Pacific Palisades. Number two, slashed fire department funding by the LA mayor by 17.6 million a few months ago, resulting in dry hydrants. 17.6 was one of the line items, but there were additional ones that adds up to 20 million. Number three, empty reservoirs and depleted aquifers from water that could be used for firefighting. Number four, fired firefighters for not taking the COVID-19 shot. Number five, donated surplus firefighting equipment from LA County Fire Department to Ukraine in 2022, and that equipment was never replenished or replaced because they classified it as surplus. Number six, USAID funding of 16 Ukrainian fire departments instead of the U.S. Number seven, no clearing of the dead brush in the woods by controlled fires in order to save the biodiversity. So we all see how that worked out. Number eight, lack of firefighting airplanes. Number nine, focus on DEI instead of objective needs of firefighters. Number 10, gusty wind, perfect for spreading fire. Number 11, open power lines dancing and sparking between trees with power companies refusing to cut the power. And last but not least, climate change cult, all legacy media desperately fighting for their existence by the crime of arson. There are many more that are not for writing, and I know what Matt's getting at there. So that's it for that. I do want to say that our sit reps now have a restricted section for content that we can't put on some platforms like YouTube where we have, strikes against us. And we also have the section for the products that we recommend. But S2, you're up with the conflicted question.
There is no conflicted question in the brief.
No, that's right. There's a grok question.
Yeah. So,
and there's a reason because we're running out of conflicted questions.
We'll tell our friends to send a new deck. At any rate, okay. So the question is, how do you balance the need for preparedness with maintaining a normal day-to-day life?
Jeff, you want to take a run at that?
Sure. We have 5 levels I'm sure you're familiar with. Goes all the way to white to black. Don't try to exist in the red or even the orange one for too long a period of time because you'll mentally wear yourself out. But you need to be in that yellow all the time. Like let's just say white is inside the house playing video games, and black is you are on the street. You've gotten out of your car and you're about to at least try to tear somebody's head off, and you're not thinking properly, and your family's in the vicinity of everything. And they see this. You have to stay around that yellow alert, and you can go low or you can go high pretty quick. But just be vigilant and see what's going on around you. You can't take into account for every consideration. And the fact of the matter is that no matter how much you prepare for a certain thing or keep your thoughts going in a certain direction, the odds of it happening exactly like you mapped it out in your brain prior to is not going to happen anything remotely close to that. And so be prepared for contingencies. And like in a powerlifting meet, you miss a lift, you don't get mad about it. You're just wasting your energy. You're burning up neurochemicals. Just suck it up, take a breath, go sit down, and when they call you back up the platform again, be your normal, good, tied up, ready to go self. But that's really it. If that's kind of my whole idea about life. So
appreciate it, Jeff. So just to reiterate, the question tonight is from Grok, not conflicted, because we're running out of conflicted questions. And the question again is, how do you balance the need for preparedness with maintaining a normal day-to-day life? So my tactic, my angle is a little bit different than other people. I started training, weightlifting, and competing in 1983, and I've run out of time. I work 80 to 100 hours a week. I don't have time to get to the gym. So what I do is I do run and gun training. So it could be live fire, it could be training fire, it could be Mantis X systems. But if you've never shot with an elevated heart rate, you're in for a big surprise. It takes a lot of time and effort to shoot accurately with a heart rate of 140, 145 beats per minute. So I take whatever rifle I'm training with, or SBR or pistol, and some of them laser based, not just the Blackbeard X. I've got some other cool training ones as well, but I'll do an exercise, I'll sprint, I'll shoot. I'll do an exercise, I'll sprint, I'll shoot. And I'll do these circuits nonstop for 45 minutes, no breaks whatsoever. I get my cardio improvement. I get muscle mass because I'm doing push-ups. I've got dumbbells out there. I've got bands for resistance. And what's measured gets done. So if you can measure something and you measure it and your performance against it, my accuracy with something like a Mantis X is consistently around the 95% mark while on the run. And I've worked really, really hard to get those kinds of numbers. So preparedness for me means if I have a home invasion, that's the shit hitting the fan. God bless the poor son of a bitch who breaks into our home. If we have a major SHTF event, I'll go down fighting for my family before I'll run away from a fight. And I've got pretty good confidence in my skills, whether I'm under stress or not. Mike Sterling likes to say human beings don't rise to the occasion, they fall their level of training. And Jeff and S2 both know that when you train on a regular basis in anything, it becomes it's second nature. You don't have to think about it, you just do it. And that's the key to preparing for SHTF. S2, you got final say?
Mental preparedness is probably the biggest part of everything. You have to know where you've been to know where you're going to go. And for me, I tend to balance this between a little bit of seriousness, but I never forget to laugh. Because if you forget the laughing part of it, you become way too serious and you get burned out on it. So you have to, this is how I balance the things, is when I do my training with a purpose. And at the end of the day, when I'm done doing my training or whatever I'm doing, I always sit down and I have the opportunity to laugh with people. And I think both of those things are important, and keeping a sense of humor in the middle of, what's the term I'm looking for? When I'm trying to be nice with my language tonight as much as I can. When you're in the middle of the shit, you have to be able to remember to keep a sense of humor, because if you don't, you'll go crazy.
This is true. This is true. All right. So we try to play a different video at the end of all of our podcasts that's entertaining, put a smile on people's faces. We have never played the same video twice, but that's fixing to change right now because I had an incredible number of requests for this video. It's 4 minutes long. The Sound of Violence. They did an amazing job on this. Dilly Meme team put a lot of work into it as well, but that's it. We'll be back tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Eastern, just like every other night of the week. Please like, share, comment, subscribe. God bless America.
Thanks, guys. God bless.